Welcome back, Red Top Podcast, Season 2, Episode 2. We're going to switch it up a little, get out of stripers and tuna and sharks is what we usually stick to. Today we're going to talk ground fishing, whether it's cod, haddock, redfish. We're going to cover it all. This week we have probably the most interesting guest so far. He's regarded to as Red Top's resident ground fisherman, the Quincy Smelt Slayer. Today we have Red Top's very own George Douglas. George, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, everybody. My name's George. I work at Red Top and I've been ground fishing for a long time. I've been employed here for about a year. And I'm glad to be here, Connor. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And obviously you've been working with us for a year, but I mean you've been coming in and out of here for as long as I can remember. As long as I've been working here.
Since I've been working
I mean,
here,
we've always had a good laugh when George comes in. And working with him is no different. So I'm very excited for this week. So I mean, we'll get right into it. Starting in January, what are you focusing on regarding ground fish? I mean, has the season started yet? Are you still waiting a little bit? Or
January is still it's still happening as far as like pollock is concerned. Jeffrey's Ledge this year was excellent. There was huge pollock, big ground, big school of pollock came in, and it didn't stop. The fishing charters out of Seabrook, they didn't stop until they absolutely had to, so they could redo the boats for the year, and that was in February. So they were jigging up as much pollock as they could.
Yeah,
and they were all good size pollock too.
Yeah, I remember seeing some pictures and videos on Instagram of just bloody boats, whether it was a party boat or like a recreational guy going out. They were killing the pollock out there.
Lots of people were coming in, especially on the weekends, grabbing stuff to go jig.
Yeah.
The bite was so good that people were just, like some guys were skipping work to go out there because from what I can remember.
And luckily the weather held out. For the most part, they were able to get out a lot, and which is very unlike the winter months. But people grin and bear the cold, and they were rewarded with a lot
Big
of pollock. So it was January was fine, and then that, like I said, that went into the end of February, and then without skipping a beat, as soon as the boats opened back up, still back up at Jeffrey's Ledge, they were catching right into right before haddock season. They were starting to catch the redfish, and the redfish, the charter business up there did the redfish every year, and this year was no different. And it picked right up, and they were catching tons and tons of these little redfish that are delicious. And when you're a ground fisherman, you're catching for meat. And these people, like me, I went up before that. Before the red fishing season. It's still going on as we speak. That'll probably end in very quickly. It usually goes from the middle of March till the middle of April, and then in the beginning of April, all summer long, and the boats will move around. So we'll continue to look for haddock, the bycatch of cusk, which are very edible, and the illustrious poor beagle sharks, but we won't get into that too much. Bait wise, they're just using it's the mighty three of the clam, squid, and mackerel.
Yeah.
Bits of mackerel, and it's some people will use teases, either fly teases or grubs, i.e. the gulp. And but you don't necessarily need them for haddock. Number 5, number 6 hook. Do a high-low rig. Drop the appropriate weight, anywhere from 10 to 16 ounces, depending on depth and current. And you just send it on down, and
jig away.
and well, you just let it sit.
Okay.
Jigging.
And I do want to cut you off quick, just because I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. I do want to backtrack a little and ask you one question, because you keep mentioning Jeffrey's Ledge.
Yeah.
Just so the listeners have an idea of where that is. What's it off of? Are we talking Cape Cod Bay,
it's in the Gulf.
South?
It's in the Gulf of Maine.
Okay.
It's just north of Stellwagen Bank. It's approximately 20 miles off Seabrook, New Hampshire.
Okay. And I know you got a little bit in there too, like rigs and what you're using mainly for pollock. I'll let you continue on that, but I do want to just ask you, what kind of like rod and reel are you using? Obviously, you're not using what you're going to use inshore for sea bass. So maybe just a couple of maybe some setup suggestions, and then I'll let you keep going on the rigs and stuff.
On your personal boat, people can use anything from a 6-foot to a 7-foot rod. Typically, they like to keep it shorter with a heavier, a heavy or an extra heavy rod. Usually that means probably up to 100-pound line for the rod, even though that's what the rating is.
Yeah, the rating.
Usually you're not getting up that high on your line, but you want to keep as thin as possible. The type of reel you can use, I mean, some people are still using their old reels, but the new reels like a Torium would be an excellent choice. Ocean jiggers. You can even use bigger Saltigas, Speedmasters. Some people still like their Accurates. And all these sizes are usually, some people like lighter the better, and some people just like moderately bigger reel. So like a Torium 20 is like an excellent reel to use. It's not too heavy. Star drag, it's easy to use. It's got plenty of drag. It's just a good all around reel. But certainly you can use a Penn Squall, 20, which is no problem. If you don't want to get down into just a lesser of your budget or whatever.
Yeah,
but either way,
friendly reel.
And I recommend just using your Zuri Super Braid. If you get 40 or 50 pound test, your Zuri Super Braid in a 40 or 50 pound leader, you're doing good. That's all you need. It's inexpensive braid and it's very, very strong. I've had absolutely no problem with it.
When you are picking your braid, have you noticed that the lighter braid tracks a little better? Like if you know there's going to be a lot of current, do you usually lessen up on your braid, or do you just jig heavier?
Well, okay. So rigging and jigging, when you're jigging, you're always off the bottom because you're always constantly moving up and down. Some people say, because the jigs are heavy, I still don't differentiate. I don't change my braid.
Gotcha.
I just change the jig depending on the current. And usually, I'm using a Norwegian style jig. Some people now are using butterfly jigs, and they're getting into the slow pitching gear, which, you do use a lighter. In my opinion, you can go down to a 30 pound test when you're trying to do a little bit of a faster jigging, more up and down with using that slow pitching gear. And that's very effective too. So the butterfly jigs work good. The jigs that work real good are the real thin, long jigs, those strike jigs,
like the
OTIs.
No, the Shimano Shimmerfall. Almost like the very slim, almost tuna slow pitch jigs.
Mm-hmm.
And I do want to note something quick, kind of as a side note. I do very little bottom fishing, so I know a little bit. I'm not as well versed as George when it comes to this stuff. And Ian is absolutely clueless.
I've only dog fish in my life,
any question you guys hear coming from Ian is his genuine curiosity, because he does not bottom fish whatsoever. So I just want to clarify that. George is the, we call him the resident ground fisherman for a reason here. I have never met somebody who not only is incredibly versed in bottom fishing, but is this passionate about bottom fishing. I've asked him to do like tuna popping trips. He's all said he just wants to go ground fish. He just wants to catch fish on the bottom. And it's honestly, I find it, I don't know the word. I guess I find it very interesting.
I just find that every time I go bottom fishing, I never know what I'm going to pull up.
True.
And I just love I love catching species to what I'm actually going out to catch. And I don't know. I just love bottom fishing, and I love the meat that it provides.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a white meat eating fisherman. Unlike some people like darker meat fish, and I don't. I just prefer eating, very white, flaky type fish, and that's where the bottom fishing comes in for me. I guess it started with the flounder. Winter flounder was my passion when I was a kid. I grew up in Quincy, and I fished out of Howe's Neck and into all the harbor and the islands for years.
Sure.
Filling up the bottom of the boat with flounder, and I loved it.
I can just picture it in my head. George with maybe like a 30 rack beer, whatever. You do like a couple buddies just in this nice aluminum skiff, just littered with winter flounder coming into the harbor. But we hit a little bit on pollock there. What kind of changes as you move into, say, the haddock, cod, and redfish? Are your setups changing? Are the rigs changing?
Yeah.
So I guess we can start with haddock and kind of hit some of those notes there.
Pollock is all jig and all teases. It really fly teases. They just love that stuff. Haddock is truly you can catch them on jigs, but and in some instances jigs work very well, but they love bait. They like clam, they like that squid, and they like mackerel, and they just bare hooks are the best. If you start with that and catch them very well on bait on the bottom.
Oh, I thought you just said bare hooks.
Bear as in BARE, bear.
Like there's
no tease.
Oh! I thought you meant when I say bare hooks, no bait.
No,
drop it down.
No,
like,
nothing.
I can try this out.
No, like bait with nothing on, just a hook.
Okay,
just a hook
kind
with
of
bait.
Like
hook and bait.
Modified high-low rig.
Yeah,
I guess
high-low rig with just bait and hook, and that's really what haddock want. They don't overload the hook. Just put enough bait on there to
cover it up,
just to cover them, and you'll probably catch some redfish, some cusk. You might even catch a wolffish because they're fun to catch down there. There's always something.
It's cool looking fish too.
And there's actually been some halibut caught as well out
while haddock fishing.
A guy was jigging a squid trex, the biggest squid trex, and he yanked up a 130-pound halibut. They're out there, and that was in 180 feet of water.
I don't know how I'd react. How would you react? Is that like a bucket list thing for
it pulls the rod down
guys?
Awesome. To prepare for it is really you can't. But if you have that 50-pound test on there for a leader line, and you got solid hooks, you should be able to get that fish up with some finesse.
Okay. And then on your rigs, are you a 1 hook or a 2 hook kind of guy?
I always go with 2 hooks.
2 hooks?
Yeah.
Okay.
When you're dropping bait down that deep, because obviously you're not jigging 30, 40 feet of water like most people, how do you keep the bait on, and 2, when do you know to like kind of check it to see if the bait's still there?
All right, I'll talk about that. I'm going to back up. When I fish on a boat, I throw up current, let it sink, and I want that bait straight up and down. That's my ultimate goal, and that's usually my highest ratio pickup for any fishing. Once that rig moves off and starts going with the current too much, and it veers off, and you got to start letting out line.
Struggling to keep.
You're better off pulling it up and restarting, and that's when you check your bait. Squid stays on excellent. Clam does not, and it wears out fast. But I'm a firm believer of changing bait constantly. You definitely do better if you continue to change your bait, like everything, whether you catch or don't. So yeah,
How do those-
mackerel also can, if it's fresh mackerel, it'll stay on better. If it's been pre-frozen, it's not as good. It's soft.
Yeah.
Okay. I had something I was going to say, but I don't remember. I did this last week too. I go to get a sentence out and I
It's
just
your
forget
ADHD.
it mid-sentence.
But I find that you try to use the least amount of weight possible that you can. If you can get away with 10 ounces at 180 feet, do it. You know, especially with braid. It really it makes your fishing more fun. You're less tired.
Just takes the stress off of you.
But what you talked about structure, and it does matter for haddock, regardless of being on a ledge like Jeffrey's Ledge or Stellwagen Bank. You definitely want to be in like a little bit of a rocky, gravelly area. And what happens is that if you're not careful with that weight, you've got to touch the bottom, but sometimes you don't want to be exactly on the bottom. Like you don't want to be dragging.
It's kind of like the canal in a sense.
Yeah,
you want to just bounce it.
You just want to bounce it up and down and be very cognizant of where that weight is on the bottom, or you're going to lose it.
Yeah.
And eventually you're going to lose stuff anyway. But you
That's
definitely want to make sure that you're just hovering above the bottom. And that's why I keep on my high-low rig is that first hook. I only keep it 4 or 5 inches above, and I only keep about 4 inches for the loop for the hook.
Sure. Okay. And what like water temperature are you guys looking for? Whether it's pollock or haddock? Is there a specific water temperature, or is it just go out and find
seasonal.
Out?
See, it's funny. Some fish are definitely temperature dependent. I think I'm sure there's a temperature with haddock. I don't know what it is, but what I do know is that they spawn in the spring, and they come back to their spawning grounds, and that spawn usually happens starting in really it starts in March. And then by April, they still have eggs in them.
Okay.
And the females meat softer, but that's really it's by April when they open the grounds, you're into it. There's no, and that water temperature is really 40, 42 degrees.
Sure.
It's kind of like cod, like if there were cod further north, the cod further south. It's the same thing, with the 5 fish limit, 23 inch on the south side of the Cape. The water temperature shouldn't make that much of a difference as long as it's cold. They can come in closer.
Sure.
So basically, as water temperature rises, they start going out further.
Okay. And what about cod? Are we switching our rigs and stuff for cod, or are we still sticking to the traditional bait? And
cod is jigging. I mean, they will be bait. They'll absolutely clam. They love clam. You can absolutely anchor up, and if you find some structure you like. But I think drifting is the best with jigs, Norwegian jigs, diamond jigs, and any other types of jigs that you like, with a teaser or two. Is extremely effective for cod. I mean, that's really the way you want to go.
And you still using those fly teasers?
And yes, what I do with cod is I personally, for rods, like the Daiwa Proteus makes a 7-foot rod. That would be an excellent choice of rod to use. It's got a great price point. It's got strength, backbone, and length, and so when you're jigging, you can come up high and come down low. There's a couple of techniques you can use. You can do the traditional, cast it out underhand a little bit, get it down the bottom, find the bottom, jig away, trying not to drag the bottom to catch the rig. And then there's a method called squidding, where you send it to the bottom, reel up 5 or 6 cranks, drop.
Okay.
Reel up 5, 6
cranks.
Do
that with tuna. Like if you mark a school of tuna under the boat, if we're jigging up fish, we usually what we'll do is same thing, kind of underhand it up current, let it hit the bottom, maybe take 2-3 jigs off the bottom, and then reel, stop, drop it, jig a little bit, reel. I mean, not necessarily a set amount of cranks, but we'll keep it variable and kind of work almost the whole water column in a sense.
Yeah, and it like maybe it's like tuna, I guess, when you find the tuna, but when you find the cod, it's usually like a pot of cod. You'll all of a sudden, if there's multiple people on the boat, everybody's hooking up. You'll be in them, and you just suck up whatever's on the bottom, and hopefully you can get in them long enough to get a couple of sweeps. And you'll do that drift, so to speak, a couple of times, maybe one further to the south, maybe one further to the north, depending on your direction, the wind and all whatnot.
Sure.
And you'll try to go back over that rocky area that really produced, and see if you can get what you can out of it. And one of the methods when you're jigging too is sending that jig down, and instead of pulling it right back up, just give it a second and see if the fish find it, and then pull it back up. They usually will grab it on the drop.
Yeah.
But you want to make sure that they see it. So there's switch it up a little bit, jig pretty quickly till the point where it sinks, pull it up, point where let it sink, pull it up, let it sink. And then sometimes I just let it sit there for a second. And I don't know, sometimes I hook up that way too.
Yeah.
So
it seems like you're very adamant on the fact of keeping it variable. If one thing's not working, switch it up, try something else. Even if you think it might be dumb, like reeling up 20 feet. But just try it, because you never know.
I've used chrome jigs and then just used lead color jigs, and it made a difference. I mean, they're, like any fishing, for any dumb reason, things change. And for whatever, like even the teaser color, it could be, I might have a fly teaser and my friend's using a 6-inch gulp, and that thing's working and mine isn't. Why? I don't know.
It could be 100 things.
It could be 100 things. It could be just the fish were never there when I was trying to fish for them.
Yeah. Now, these fish that we've talked about so far, the pollock, the haddock, the cod, we touched a little on redfish. What out of those fish are like currently in season? Like, what can you go out and catch, say, this weekend?
If I was anybody that could get out this weekend, I would get up to Jeffrey's Ledge, and I would get out and get haddock and redfish right now. Okay. They are red hot. If you got a weather window and it takes, an hour and a half on a fast boat to get out there, find yourself some rocky bottom and get out there and fish. Okay. They're in 180 feet of water right now. Hover right around that and find some edges of the ledge where it goes from shallower to deeper. That's what you want to focus on. And you will catch some fish. I mean, I limited out last week without blinking an eye.
I remember you coming in and sharing that. Now we'll move into the more, I guess, the bottom fishing. Yeah. I'm more familiar with. I've never done the haddock, cod, or pollock or anything like that, but I think it's your favorite. We can clarify. I know you said you have a profound love for the winter flounder, but I would love to get you talking about tautog.
Okay.
Because from hearing you talk around the shop with customers and stuff, I think it's your favorite.
It's one of my favorites. I mean, flounder is my favorite, but tog is like a one. If there was a 1A and a 1B, I do love tog fishing. I wouldn't say I'm an expert at it, but I will say that I am working my way towards finding my stride, the gear that I really like to use. So, as far as gear goes, people use conventional and they use spinning. Typically, the spinning real quick is people like to use jigs, and they use spinning gear a lot for the jigs. People like light setups. They want a tip that is very, very flexible with a backbone that is very, very strong. They don't want the tog to feel any tension whatsoever. Okay. When you've got that spinning rod in the water, and it's the same goes for the rigs, but spinning, you've got to leave a little bit of just a little bit of the line in the water without any tension whatsoever.
Okay.
And so you'll be waiting, not only you waiting for vibration, but you're waiting for the tog to actually pull that jig to pull the rod.
Okay.
So yeah, you just want to leave a little bit, that line just dipped a little bit. And I typically a 1 ounce or 1.5 ounce jig should do it in this area. Unless you're in extreme currents or extreme deep water, there's no need to have heavy jigs. And it's a misnomer, like they call it a jig, but you don't move it.
No,
no,
and I've talked to you about that before. About how,
it's like you put the crab on the jig and you let it, you find its home and let it sit. Wait for the tog to take off with it and pull, and that's when you set that hook. Reels, anything strong, any you could use a battle. You could use a Spiros up to a Saragossa, which would be almost overkill. My personal favorite reel is a VR 75 or the VR 50. Those reels are very small and very strong and very light.
And when you're looking for a reel, are you looking for more, like a big argument in the canal is the 10,000 versus the 14,000 Saragossa? Are you looking for the speed or the torque?
Torque. In my opinion, torque. It's like I've tried a Surte 4000, and it was so fast I couldn't really move it.
Okay.
The VR 50 is slower. The VR 75 is a little faster, but it's torque. It's the gear. It's still torquey, and it's torquey, if that's even a word.
I just made it one.
I know. Yeah, automate that up. But it is. It's a strong. Those are the perfect reels, in my opinion.
Okay.
And I don't care what rod you put them on.
What's your favorite rod? I know you have 100 of them. I mean, I watch you over the winter buy new rod. Every new rod that came in, you're like, oh, that'd be a good tog rod. Let me grab that.
What's your favorite one? Right now, I'm using an ODM Inshore DNA medium light. The price point was there, and it's a strong rod. I like it. I like it. I like it a lot.
I'll look at a wall.
But the Travala isn't too bad either. It's a little more flexible in the sense that it has kind of a moderate bend, but it's a 6.6, and I think that if you start going over 7 feet, I mean, some people love it. I think it's going. I like 6.6 to 7. 7.3 is a good length as well. So that's from a jigging perspective. Now the jigs themselves.
Pause. I just want to say, torquey is a word. I just Googled it.
Torquey?
Torquey is a word. Definition of torquey is the tendency of force applied to an object to make it rotate about an axis. So I didn't come up with that word, George.
Okay,
that's a real word.
Now, when you're tog fishing, are you also obviously you're looking for rocks?
What?
Are we recording?
Yeah, it's good.
Oh, okay, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't know we were back.
Oh, we never stopped.
Oh,
we haven't stopped since we started.
Yeah, when you're tog fishing, you're obviously looking for structure, but have you? Because the only time I've tog fished was when I went to Maritime and I was jigging off that pier. Do you like structure like piers and like I don't know, like docks and stuff, or do you prefer just big fields underwater?
Okay. Structure is key with tog. That's what they live in. They eat barnacles, they eat crabs, they eat little fish. I mean, they eat they eat mussels. They've
like
got
little,
the teeth for it,
trash cans,
but they just eat a little bit of everything. They don't have. I mean, it's kind of like they're made to eat
crustaceans,
but they will eat. They're opportunistic. I mean, they'll eat anything they can find, but they like it fresh. They're not going to go out and seek out dead meat. They prefer something fresh. They love pilings, like you said, rocks, and definitely anything that holds structure.
So it doesn't really matter. They're kind of just there.
That's what they prefer.
Yeah.
Water temperature makes it all right. So,
go ahead. I know what's about to happen, and I'm looking forward to it. So go ahead.
So with water temperature, so spring's here, and we're looking. Everybody's like getting excited for tog. My understanding is 48 degrees is a very good temperature for the tog to start migrating in. So not only does their own naturalistic instincts bring them in, but the water temperature moves that along. So right now we're around 47.7 degrees top temperature. That 0.3, and that's in Buzzards Bay, by the way. So all the way out to about, as far as I know, out to that we're in that 47.7 degrees, and we want 48 degrees for tog to really kick off. Now I went out yesterday.
3 really make a difference?
Probably not as much as you think. I think it's just a matter of now it just picks up. It gets better from here. Okay. If you were hunting tog right now, you'll find them if you really put your effort in. But really till it picks up, like the spring tog season's quick. You're looking at a 3 to 4 week window where people are targeting because you can keep 3. And then all of a sudden Seabass happens and people lose their crab connections, and they can only keep 1 tog, so they're really not looking to direct their attention at them. They're still there.
Sure.
But the spring tog season, the tog tend to be, a lot of females come in and they're all pregnant. And so they're loaded with eggs, and
so they're ready to eat.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can keep them. A lot of guys don't, because tog have a long aging process. Like it takes them a long time to become big.
I was going to say, I think AJ mentioned something to me last year. He's like a 10-pound tog is something like 20 something years old.
Yeah, it's not. They're not a quick growing fish, unlike pelagics. Like in 1 year they're huge. Now tog are been around for a while when they start getting of age, and they start getting weight associated with them. So the point being is that I don't care what you do. If it's legal, it's legal, and that's fine. But a lot of people let the eggers go, the females go, and they continue to keep the males.
Sure.
But that said, is crabs is key. People say that all their chins and their teeth are different in the spring. I don't necessarily know that to be true. I think that they're just send down a crab and they're going to eat it. You can try using clam and you can try using worms, but crabs are going to work. We were sending down big crabs yesterday and just splitting them in half, and 16-inch tog weren't having any problem eating them,
crushing them up.
Nope.
And you keep mentioning like a rig or a jig.
Mm-hmm.
When are you using a rig? When are you using a jig? And what's the big difference?
It's preference. Most people with spinning, I already went through with using spinning gear.
Yep.
With a jig.
Okay.
It's just easier to get the jig down on the spinning gear. Whereas the conventional setups with the rigs, they are more stable on the rocks. A jig will kind of move around a little bit. It's so light, and it takes longer for it to get down. Sure. Some people just want to get to the bottom. And a typical simple setup is like a low rig. All it is a weight and a hook, and like a 4/0 hook, like a circle hook, putting that crab on there and just dropping it down. You can do that.
Okay.
And just wait for that tog and on rocky bottom, and just wait for that tog to hit it. The weight you use could be anywhere from 4 to 10 ounce, depending on the current. Whereas I think a lot of people on a rig, I think a lot of people jig fishing wait for the currents to die down. Whereas when you're rig fishing, when the current's really strong and it's like mid current,
it's so streaky, it's so sleek, it doesn't really matter.
I use strong braid. I try to use like 40-pound braid. And I use usually a 50-pound leader. I personally like either clear or pink colored leader material. So if you can get it, you don't have to go with fluorocarbon. Some guys will swear by it, but I think that it just get something on a hook. You're gonna go through a lot of gear. But the chances of losing certain gear on 50-pound test versus 40-pound test. Now, why so strong? Tog is strong. As soon as you get them hooked on, their first instinct is to get away from you, and they want to bury themselves in the rocks. I mean, even yesterday, you get a tog on, that tog just goes right into a rock.
That's it.
We'll put it in the pole holder and see if he comes out. You're just waiting for him to see if he moves, and if he doesn't, you just yank. You're just breaking the line if you have to, and just tying on another rig.
Yeah, and it's funny you brought that up, because I was texting with Matt Hefner from On the Water earlier, and I was talking about, he posted a picture with some short to tog the other day. He took a lunch break and went out and caught some to tog, and I had mentioned that I have never to tog fished before. I went once last year with a little bit of your guidance, and his reply was, dude, you need to do some togging. Even the little ones I was catching, force the drag to slip when you set the hook. They're so much fun, and I'm always reminded of how strong they are.
They are definitely the pit bull of they're the bulldog of the ocean. They really are, and they're a lot of fun to catch, and they're good to eat too. I mean, if you just want to sport fish them, that's fine. If you want to eat them, that's good too. I mean, you can't lose with catching some tog. Very, very good eating fish, and a very rewarding, fun fish to catch. I think that's why. And we were talking about gear. I try to keep I use a Saltica 15, and I think it's fine. But then again, my taste in reels, I just like the feel of a decent reel. But you can use any strong reel that is small. I mean, you just don't. The gear ratio is really the key. You don't want to go over 5 to 1, if possible.
So you would say that the size of the reel isn't really important. It's more the power of the reel.
Yeah, power of the reel and the rod itself. Now, the rod itself, one of the best rods I found right off the shelf is the Jigging World Hybrid. I just like it. I like the feel of it. It's got a very, very, it's got a very thin tip that just dips nicely, and it's got an awesome backbone. That is one nice reel, one nice rod that you can use.
Yeah. And those aren't, those rods aren't break the bank either. I think they're $180, $190.
Yeah. I mean, you can get a Black Demon. You can go get a Ghost Hunter. I mean, you can get a Black Widow, not the Ghost Hunter, but the Black Widow from Jigging World perspective. Not that I'm promoting just Jigging World. There are definitely other rods out there. The Daiwa Harrier 6.4, very inexpensive rod, very good rod. I would definitely give that an opportunity.
And even those, you're talking $100 for a Harrier.
Yep.
So it's not necessarily an expensive fishery to get into. I mean, anybody can really come and spend
in Massachusetts. It's different.
And get out on the water.
Yeah, I mean, in Massachusetts, it's different than it is in New York. So there's a rod that Century makes called the Pro Togger, it's a very,
It's
very
sick.
strong rod.
We have one here.
But the problem with it is here, it's you don't get into that deep water and those deep wrecks like Virginia, Jersey,
Sure.
New York. You don't need a rod like that.
You don't need a cannon of a rod.
You don't necessarily need, and that's what makes it fun.
Yeah.
Is that you can catch these big tog
Light
on
tackle.
lighter
Like, yeah,
tackle,
yeah.
and it's so much fun.
Yeah.
You know.
So moving away from tog, unless you have anything else to add, you know.
Well, I will say this:
Okay.
Buzzards Bay, all the way from Rhode Island to Buzzards Bay, and then actually tog have been moving into Cape Cod Bay, so there is opportunities out there as
Yes.
well.
Which is interesting. It'll be
I mean,
interesting
the
to
Albies
see
did it
how.
last year, so it's not.
Yeah, I mean there were
Well, part of
Albies,
that's-
false albacore up at P-Town last year, which was wild. 2 years ago we had Cape Cod Bay was. I don't even want to talk about this because I get mad whenever I do. Those little baby bonito everywhere. Oh my!
Not
I
mackerel.
hated those little. I would go out and try and catch mackerel, and I would fill buckets with those little bonito, and I'd catch 2 mackerel because this is just littered. But anyway, that's off topic. But moving into May, come May 18th, we see our Seabass open. You know, kind of just tell me about the sea bass fishery around here, what you're seeing, maybe some changes, maybe they're moving to deeper water, coming in shallower. What are the struggles, the advantages?
Okay,
Give me
so
the rundown.
I'll just say the word scup real quick because scup and sea bass are synonymous. They
They're
come in
best
at like the
friends.
same
Sea
time.
robin.
The
too.
best friends
The one
and
time,
sea
I,
robins.
the one time that I ever went sea bassing, I caught probably 15 sea robins in one sea bass.
Yeah, the
It was
little
horrible.
they grunt.
Dogfish.
I
too.
think they're cute.
Always, if you fish bait for sea bass, I've always noticed you get piled up in dogfish.
May 18th, when that opens, I would suspect nothing less in Buzzards Bay for it to just start right up. I think sea bass, there's tons of them out there. All the charters are roaring and ready for that opening. The weather's nice, and it's personally I would jig for them early. There's so many. They're hungry.
And they're vicious.
They just
Yeah,
they
they-
attack everything.
When he says jig, anything that sinks, if you can get it to the bottom, you can hook a sea bass.
like I would just go with cripple herrings and just
clean house.
clean house early.
Yeah.
You know, as light as you can get away with, get it down there, and just start jigging away with a teaser.
Yeah.
A fly teaser. Any real particular color, that pink chartreuse.
Tubes.
Chartreuse. They even Hoagie now has got into it, and
Yeah, with
they're
the
making
jig beaky.
they're making a jig beaky, and they've got the squinno, which goes in the bottom of the jig beaky. It looks like a deadly combo.
It does.
So that could be one of the new winners. But as the season progresses, is that I personally like the when you're doing a drift, I like using a bucktail with a teaser and with a strip of squid, or depending on the
Pork
type,
rind or gulp or
yeah,
anything
well,
like that.
gulp or sometimes even the squid tentacles on the back of the jig. And what happens most often is I keep it off the bottom, like you don't just let it drag on the bottom. You keep it off bottom and moving a little bit, and you let it out to a certain degree. But it's just like any type of jigging or any type of drift. You want to keep it. You cast the head of the current, drop it to the bottom. That's your key area. As it swings out, you only go so far and reel it back up and do it again.
Sure. My favorite sea bass jig, I like to eliminate the shorts because obviously in Buzzards Bay now, I like to fish about 30 feet of water. I stay in shallow and close. I don't really go out to, like Cleveland Ledge with the 40, 45 feet and out off of Nomans with sometimes 80 feet. So in order to eliminate the smaller fish, my favorite sea bass lure is a 1.5 ounce Gag's head with a white paddle tail.
You do that.
You eliminate any small fish you can't keep, and they hold up for the whole day. You can get your limit on the day. They have like, I would say a more like stripers have like a sandpapery mouth. I would say sea bass have a little bit more of a sharper sandpapery mouth.
They do.
So I mean, a soft plastic will hold up for a good amount. It'll get torn up and kind of
Gulp will get torn up pretty good. They
yeah.
do a number on it. The bigger ones do anyway, and they all do.
Yeah.
The key with and the one thing I like about sea bass is like
no stripers.
Groundfish. Their mouth is so big that they'll eat almost any size hook.
Oh, they'll eat anything.
So if you want to get rid of scup, you could throw in a 6-aught hook and it's not going to be an issue.
Yeah.
I mean, even the small sea bass will eat a 6-aught hook.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they're vicious little fish.
I had them blitzing when we went albie fishing. I
had one day. I think it was like it's probably early to mid-June. I was coming out of the marina and I came around the corner and I see these flips on top. I'm like, oh, sweet. Like there's pogies. Let me get a couple because I'm going to go striper fish right now. So I get a snag hook tied up and I cast it and I'm reeling, just waiting to feel a thump so I can snag it. And I feel thump and I set the hook and I'm tight. But it was fighting like a fish, not like a pogie that I just snagged on the side of its back. And I get it to the boat and it was a sea bass. It was probably all of 11 inches and it ate a 10-aught snag hook right off the top. And it was the wildest experience. And it really just, I mean, it drives the point that sea bass will eat anything. They don't, if it moves, they'll probably try to eat it.
I don't care if it's a tube, a metal jig,
they eat it.
Rubber, whether it's deer, bucktails, they don't care. They'll eat it for the most part. But I think that the guys that really know what they're doing know their seasonal, like they have their like they know in July to use this, they know in August to use that. They really do have those details down. But I know, let's just start May 18th. Get out your jigs. If you want to go with bait is never an issue. I mean, you can always try bait.
Bait works, but for me, there's just no reason to make a mess.
That's my
point. If they eat a lead, you could put an assist hook on a bank sinker, and I guarantee you catch more sea bass than you will if you cut up squid.
But the same places that tog live are the same places that sea bass live.
Yes.
So, you're not just going to hit any bottom out there and say, oh, there's going to be sea bass. There's a million sea bass out there. They go where their food is, and their food is in structure.
In the rocks.
And, that's where you really want to land. If you see a lot of sea bass traps around, there's really no sense in fishing there. You got to go find your own holes.
Yeah.
They've already been sucked up in those traps. So
there's no like lack of spots for sea bass.
No.
It's like if you can find a rock, even if it's one rock. I have a couple of sea bass spots out in Buzzards Bay. It's one big boulder. No other rocks around it, just one giant boulder sitting on the bottom. They're hanging around it.
Just like everything, though, there are certain times of the year where you want to make sure that you're at the right depths, depending on water temperature. So, early in the year, May 18th comes, you want to be out there in that shorter water. And then work your way deeper as the season goes on.
Have you ever noticed that? Oh, here's the striper talking to me. But have you ever noticed like moon phases affect bottom fishing?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I don't prefer to bottom fish when the current's flying. So when we got a moon,
big tides.
I don't like it. Some people don't mind it. Like we were out yesterday, and the moon was really full, and it didn't seem to make a difference in the current or anything. So I think what really affects it is dirty water.
So dirty
after
water,
a storm,
it's terrible.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Dirty water. That's when you got to go with glow and bait. Anything glow and bait to try to attract.
You got to think there's already almost no visibility in that depth, and then
that's right.
Add that murky water, it's like It's just they can't see anything.
That's right.
It's just
So that
mud.
makes sense. Yeah.
But all right. Holy, that was a lot. It was good though.
I'm gonna have to when I ever end up going bottom fish, I do really want to go sea bass in this area. I'm gonna have to bring that down.
I mean,
so much fun.
Like if the people listening, if you want to come in and talk more about this, I mean, we've got all the rigs, jigs, tackle, rods, reels, everything here. It's just a matter of, and we can do it at whatever price point that you have for your budget.
Yeah.
And I can keep it as simple as possible, or I can make it as difficult as possible. I mean, but for the most part, from a bottom fishing perspective, simple the better.
Yeah.
Really, it's there's not much to it. It's just getting out there and doing it.
Definitely. Well, that was one hell of a podcast. Ian, I would probably not push the cable on the mic down before you unplug it, which you may have. You did. George, thank you for coming on. This was a much needed podcast. It was great that we finally can kind of hone in on some bottom fishing for some guys who are interested. You're full of information, and it's incredible. So if you need any help regarding any bottom fish, come into the shop, see George. He's here, 2-3 days a week?
Mm-hmm.
So come in, ask for George. He can help you out. If you're interested in anything we mentioned in the podcast, you can check the video description on YouTube or Apple Music, and I will have links to all those items in there. Thank you guys for listening once again. We will be back next week. And make sure you go check out redtopinc.com, because everything that we have in the store that we'll talk about on the podcast or talk to you about in the store will be online. Our current inventory numbers are on there, so you'll be able to tell if it's in stock or out of stock before driving all the way down here. But have a good week, and we will see you on the next one.